Chapter 3. Exploring Sexuality. Part of finding your freedom and knowing your own mind as you grow up is exploring sexuality. We are all exposed to it much younger than society says we should be. Kids are curious creatures, and I am often amazed at how many of us had young sexual experiences that we feel ashamed into not talking about because we aren't of age and don't feel comfortable talking about it in the first place. I wonder how different many of us might feel if the subject was widely open for discussion. On one hand, I have children myself, and while I can imagine talking with my daughter about this would be uncomfortable, I am well aware from my own experiences how children play with mummies and daddies. I'm sure children naturally put two and two together and gather from observation the difference in their anatomy, for one, and I appreciate that sex education could be a touchy subject. No parent wants to introduce it to their children, in that sense of feeling like they're influencing them to partake in something they're not ready for. However, here's food for thought. Wouldn't you say that we have the responsibility to teach them how they were created? To teach them about what it means to love and what it means to conceive a child of their own, when attraction becomes part of their biology, beyond just the wait for marriage and kid speech most of us got and didn't listen to. I think teaching them the foundations of wanting to create a family and how sacred this act is a beautiful place to start from. But we often leave out the details and realities in order to preserve their innocence. But if they are already watching and wondering, curious children without answers will then go and seek them out for themselves. Far better that we educate them truthfully, don't you think? We have an opportunity here to give them a wonderful introduction to what it means to love one another, but also what it means to love your own self and maintain your self-respect and self-worth, even as you explore your sexuality. To teach them how to allow for the best outcome in any situation regarding sex, and to bear in mind peer pressure and boundary setting too. When I was 9, I recall my excitement at going through all my dad's VHS tapes. They were in one of the boxes brought over from South Africa, and being a right so and being a right nosy so and so, excuse me, I found myself rummaging through it. Came across some gold. I love getting lost for hours in action films with the likes of Jean-Claude Van Damme, Sylvester Stallone, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. One day, however, I came across a tape that had most likely been forgotten about. It was a porno tape. I was shocked. I knew it was naughty, though I don't remember my parents ever giving me the sex talk. The video contents were quite graphic. I suppose part of me instinctively knew this wasn't the sacred act of sex between two people, the respectful, self-worth version, but something dirtier. I ended up hiding it. Excuse me. I ended up hiding it after watching it. Funnily enough, the tape ended up disappearing again. Damage had already been done. And at 9 years old, I had been influenced by sexual content. The only the only other time I had experienced anything sexual before that was when I was around 4 or 5 years old in South Africa, though it was nothing like the tape. I remember having a neighbour who was the same age as me, and we were playing in his bedroom, the two of us experimenting with each other. How did that come about, I wonder? Was I under his influence? Was he under mine? Were we acting out something either one of us saw or our parents do? I imagine I'm not far off from the truth. Either way, what I do know is that it made me uncomfortable later on in life and gave me nightmares of anxiety and confusion growing up. After I found the tape, a similar thing happened with one of my childhood friends. We were around the same age, and having been exposed to unadulterated content early on, It seemed convenient for us to play out these scenes by hiding away, kissing, and playing mummies and daddies. Our undeveloped minds were trying to process what we had been exposed to, but thankfully, our undeveloped bodies wouldn't recreate the act. Though I will never forget what she said to me that day. Do it like my uncle does it. I feel incredibly uneasy even writing those words now. As a consequence, I started experimenting, one time by letting my dog lick my penis, and another time playing around with my mum's dildo. I was alone in the house while she went to run errands. How I found it? Only the child back then knows. But I have a suspicion I was being nosy once again. I ended up putting it in my mouth before trying to insert it in my bum. I even tried to look up my great-grandmother's skirt once, much to my embarrassment and shame. When I was around 10, I would follow another older lad I looked up to. I wanted to be just as cool as he was, having no idea what he was capable of at the time. One day, he and another boy and I went for a walk up to the hills, into the woods, making jokes and messing about when we stopped. The older lad took out his penis and started to play with himself, encouraging us to do the same. I now could see that he was grooming us and wanted to have sex with us, but I refused. I was really uncomfortable with the whole situation, especially when he proceeded to have sex with the other boy. This wasn't the first time or the last time something like this happened. Another boy from the bottom of town I used to walk up home the same way. Midway through the walk one day, he took me around a corner by a farm and started masturbating before he ejaculated on the floor in front of me. I found it funny and weird, but thought no more of it. As right this now, I feel uncomfortable with the thought that he likely wanted the younger me to act on him as well. As you might imagine, this is all very uncomfortable for me to share. As a man looking back now, what comes to mind after healing these memories that have plagued me is this. I was just an innocent, curious child, acting out what I had seen on the VHS tapes, and wanting to understand sexual anatomy, while girls had other parts and trying to fit in with the older boys. More to the point, I knew no better, trying to wrap my mind around something I wasn't old enough to comprehend yet. I always wondered why I was uncomfortable around men growing up. I also wondered why I was so withdrawn, antisocial, and felt like I was off key. For one, I didn't have a normal relationship with my father growing up, as he wasn't around that much. We didn't hang out. Add that to these experiences that I just shared with you, it's no wonder I felt uncomfortable. So much that my child's brain blocked out parts of these memories of other boys pleasuring themselves around me, and that instance of seeing another boy getting penetrated, until I was writing this book. From my understanding now, the neuron patterns I would have started developing in these situations were part of my freeze response, a means to protect myself in situations where I did not feel safe. But until I recognized this response, it continued as a loop, a story in my head. Unfortunately, it resulted in me somewhat shutting off from the world, withdrawn and numb. For our reptilian brain, the one responsible for the freeze response and survival aspect of our mind, concentrates on all the negatives rather than the best outcomes, especially when trauma is involved. What is the reptilian brain, you might ask? I like to think of our brains as Lego. Along the evolutionary line, our minds evolved from the reptilian brain, first piece of Lego. In fact, if you were to dissect the human brain, you would see the same structure as a reptilian at the center of our brain. Only as we've evolved, by my own analogy, we've added extra pieces of Lego, and our brain has become a more sophisticated, complicated piece with many elements to study. This frees a response in my lack of being able to communicate with anyone about sexual acts only made me more insecure about my earlier childhood memories. Why didn't I discuss this with my parents? Well, why don't kids ever come forward? Is it just shame, embarrassment, fear of judgment? Because we as adults aren't completely transparent with them. So they aren't with us. All I can tell you is that the guilt from the earliest memories, having hidden the VHS tape and the other experiences, contributed to hiding all aspects of myself in later life, which keeps which kept me in the shame loop spiral. Now, looking back, it's so clear to see where the communication problems started. Rooting shame around a subject and never disclosing the events that happened to you is never healthy. How different it would have been for me if I had only been brave enough to express myself and talk to an adult. But it was only as I began writing this book, for the first time self-inquiring, that I addressed the wounds that triggered these thoughts and feelings over and over again. Instead, throughout my teens, I felt like I had a dark secret. It burdened me to think that if anyone knew about these experiences, they would knock me for being gay. How did I even make that association that being gay was a dark secret? I suppose, given that I had a mum and dad, I knew this as the norm for sexual couples, and I instinctively felt like homosexuality wasn't for me. But that is my own personal experience. It was these experiences and thoughts that made me uncomfortable around blokes. I didn't trust them, given what I had been exposed to. I recall when I started experimenting with myself in private, having felt aroused one evening when I was locked away in the bedroom. I was surprised to feel my penis erect. I started pleasuring myself and, to my shock, had an orgasm, which felt good. But in my haste for more, I wanted to achieve another orgasm, after another. I must have masturbated over and over again until I couldn't ejaculate anymore, to the point where my penis and balls would ache the next day. How is this something you even discussed with your parents as a teen? I can't imagine talking about it with my mum, though it would have been nice with Dad to at least talk about the beautiful girl that I had taken a liking, that had taken a liking to me and made advancements. I'll never forget her, and I've always regretted how awkward I was at the time, knowing that she liked me. She was beautiful. She had blonde hair, was confident. She knew what she liked, and she went after it, which was me at the time. I wasn't shy, I don't think, and despite my lack of communication, I had a flair for life and was cheeky. She came knocking on my door one afternoon after school, but my parents said I was too young to be dating at 16, which made me feel like a bit of a loser, and off she went. I made an excuse that day, but arranged to meet her another time. If only my parents had known that, by this point, I had been sexually experimenting for several years, without them knowing. The next time we met, she and I hung out with another friend of ours. Together, we found an abandoned boat at an industrial estate, and my mate dared us to go inside. So we did. Inside, she offered to give me a blowjob. I'll never forget how she looked at me, and for the life of me, I can't recall why I rejected her, although I imagine it might have been anxiety. I regret not kissing her. I regret not allowing her to indulge with me. I started by now to grow accustomed by hating my own behaviour. The way I carried myself was awkward, and I felt like I was not worthy of attention. I was not shy, but I was insecure. To top it off, I felt like my penis was small, perhaps because I was comparing it to what I had seen in adult movies and the older lads in the neighbourhood from my past, and the lads in the neighbourhood from the past. Feeling like my own worst nightmare, she soon sacked me off, disappointed and no doubt fed up with my frigidness. This would cause my insecurities and shyness in this area to develop even further. My parents was right. I wasn't ready, despite my experimentation. And my experience with the girl just piled on more embarrassment, shame, and lack of confidence that I couldn't talk to anyone about. As children and teens, we get so fed up with being told what is right and wrong by adults, even as we watch them contradict themselves with the likes of VHS tapes and dildos and whatever else. Either way, we don't know what we don't know, right? If only the communication channel had been more free and less shame, I might have not had sexually I might have not had sexually repressed experiences that would later come back to bite me in the bum. Are you ashamed about anything from your childhood? Even now, for that matter? How can my story help you to shed light onto your own experiences? Feel free to write them out and spend time sitting with them, feeling it. Go on, give it a go. One of the biggest gifts you can give yourself is to self-inquire. Take it from me. Try to do so without any judgment. Roll your shoulders back. Put your chest out. Pretend you will open up your heart wide and shed light on it. For any judgments you hold will only create further obstacles for you. The aim here is detachment. Try to let go. Give it a good cuddle and cradle that image of the memory with love. As we practice in the last chapter, give it care, but don't pay any mind to how different you wish you had been. However it hurts, let it be what it was and fully feel into it. This is the only way to truly let go. The best thing you can do is to come to a state of compassion and forgiveness to yourself and for those who might have contributed to the memory. Repeat after me. We know what we knew at the time, and so it was. Now let it be. This is what you call an affirmation, something I'll come to in another chapter. After saying that affirmation, imagine freezing the memory in your mind's eye. Put it in a box and imagine closing that box, sending it away and see it disappear before your eyes, with the intention that it no longer serves you, does not need to burden you anymore. Repeat this exercise if necessary, as I did, and after a while, you just start to feel good about it, should you choose to believe in the box dissolving for good. This exercise reminds me of a story about a man who was carrying a rucksack of all his belongings down a long stretch of road. Along the way, after miles and miles, at some point he came across another man with a spring in his step, who was whistling. The man who was whistling noticed the man with the rucksack struggling. "Why are you carrying all that with you, mate? Any purpose?" he asked. "Yes," the other man responded. "This is pretty cool. Check it out. I found it along the way here. The other stuff is just things I've also collected over the years, and the rest of the stuff are belongings my family passed down to me. But why are you carrying all of that? When you're clearly struggling, why not let it go and be free, my friend? You will be so much more at peace." My encouragement is that we all do the same thing. One final exercise that might help you in this area is as follows. Get a notepad out and list the name of every person you can think of whom you feel has done you wrong at some point in your life. At the end, with an open mind, go through each name and put your right hand to your heart and say, "I now understand you knew no better. I now release the burden that I carry with me in your name and image with forgiveness. I wish you all the best." I reached almost 300 names when I did this exercise, but each time I repeated it, I felt lighter as time went by. I now feel no emotional attachment towards any of those 300 names. It feels fantastic not to have any emotional tie with the past. So try it. Look inside your rucksack. Thanks for listening. And subscribe if you haven't already. If you've got anything that you'd like to share with us or me, please feel free to do so. Take care. See you on the next one.